السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. إيه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي واشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. اللهم لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم صل وسلم على محمد. Right, assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for coming. We're continuing the 19th word about the messengership of Muhammad. And last week we talked about how when we're talking about the messengership of Muhammad, we're starting with the roots or everyone else who came before him with the same message. We're talking about how his character was reflecting the message. We're talking about how he treated the universe and how he treated the world, everyone in the world. And then we spoke about how his message was responding to three very important questions, which are basically, what am I doing here and where do I come from and what is my destination? And then we started to talk about how this message is helping us view the world and view the things around us and view people. Should we view them as friends or strangers, or should we be so stuck in the idea that everything is leaving and nothing is staying, or should we realize the eternity of creation? And I think today we're going to continue on this message. How is it that his message is making a difference? And what is it really bringing? What is it revealing? Again, the author is trying, I feel like the author is trying to use many ways for the proof of messengership, or the necessity of messengership of Muhammad. So everyone reading and listening to this, it's my and your own task to find what is convincing and what is satisfying to your feelings. So we will be starting from the 5th droplet. And as usual, if something attracts your attention or you want to reflect or ask questions, please do. Let's start. All right. Also, through his light, the motion and movement of the universe and its variations, changes, transformations, cease being meaningless, futile, and playthings of chance. They rise to being dominical missives, pages inscribed with the signs of creation, mirrors to the divine names, and the world itself becomes a book of the eternally besought one's wisdom. Okay. So again, kind of reflecting the previous droplet, instead of viewing the changes that happens around us and the movement of universe, which can be anxiety provoking, not understood, not relatable. Instead, they rise being dominical missives or pages inscribed with the signs of creation and mirrors to the divine names. So it goes from being the scary thing, not understood, meaningless, to signs and mirrors. And the world itself becomes a book of the eternally besought one's wisdom. Yeah. Okay. Man's boundless weakness and impotence make him inferior to all other animals, and his intelligence, an instrument for conveying grief, sorrow, and sadness, makes him more wretched. Man's boundless weakness and impotence make him inferior to all other animals, and also his intelligence, an instrument for conveying grief, sorrow, and sadness, makes him more wretched. Yet, when he is illumined with that light, he rises above all animals and all creatures. When he is illumined with that light, my understanding here would be when he agrees with the message or when he feels that the message is true or is convinced with the message, he rises above all animals and creatures. Through entreaty, his illuminated impotence, poverty, and intelligence make him a petted monarch. Due to his complaints, he becomes a spoiled vicegerent of the earth. That is to say, if it were not for his light, the universe and man and all things would be nothing. Yes, certainly such a person is necessary in such a wondrous universe. Otherwise, the universe and firmaments would not be in existence. I highlighted the part where it said certainly such a person is necessary in such a wondrous universe, because it's interesting how he's showing the necessity of the person. I don't think I'm used to hearing that when it comes to the prophet. But I don't have much to say to it. I just like it.
Actually, it's a very good point that you made, mashallah, because we don't hear that, but the light that the prophet brings, mashallah. You know, how many times, look at the universe, it has meaningful significance. I mean, even if we study our secular studies that we do, how many times do we see that there's some message where whatever we see in the universe, whatever is happening to us, that it is a message that is coming to us from the source of existence, the one who made the things. That's why the phrase above in the first paragraph was mentioning about the playthings of chance. When I read that, I was asking myself, do I live in this world like thinking everything is the plaything of chance? Because we don't really pay much attention. I don't, like, I may be sitting in a garden, I will be looking at trees and plants, flowers, I may be looking at the sun, the birds. Yeah, and then maybe the rotation day and night going through day by day is just happening. Never see that they are all messages, signs. So definitely we need someone. I mean, who else? The books I've read in school never told me that they are meaningful messages from the one who made them. So giving the meaning to the universe, to the things around us, because they rise to being dominical missives. Dominical missives, not by themselves. They're not just there, happen to be like that. But someone deliberately is conveying something to me. Hey, realize, wake up. This is not just something random. It's not something, a plaything of chance. You have a purpose. The things have a purpose. I mean, so that necessitates someone definitely who brings me into this particular light of belief. That's why the light is an important word as well. Otherwise, everything seems dark, as in the introduction, as you shared with us. So that's some things I'm thinking. And of course, in the next continuation about whatever the human being has, boundless weakness and impotence makes him inferior to all the other animals. Yeah, the animals, they are much smarter in terms of whatever the abilities they are given, but human being with his intelligence has to use it properly in terms of understanding the meaning behind what the existence of human being is, what the existence of the universe is. Otherwise, it will just be information, data collection, and then everything will pass away. That's why conveying grief, sorrow, and sadness, because there is no message or nothing that is a dominical missive for me that comes through it. So those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. All right. The sixth droplet. Thus, that being brings and announces the good news of eternal happiness. He is the discoverer and proclaimer of an infinite mercy, the herald and observer of the beauties of the sovereignty of dominicality, and the discloser and displayer of the treasures of the divine names. So earlier it was that everything rises to become mirrors to the divine names. And then now he's becoming the discloser and displayers of the treasures of the divine names. That's very exciting. If you regard him in that way, that is in regard to his being a worshipful servant of God. I'm so sorry. Again, sorry, I'll start again. If you regard him in that way, that is in regard to his being a worshipful servant of God, You will see him to be the model of love, the exemplar of mercy, the glory of mankind, and the most luminous fruit of the tree of creation. This is wonderful, because it's showing me that the prophet is not just bringing a message, saying it, and then that's it. There's a connection between him and the message, between who he is and what he does and the message. And here we're not talking about the message as a set of rules or a set of things to do. Instead, it's more like, if I'm asking myself how to be in this world, or who to be, what kind of values do I need to have to achieve my or reach my potential as a human being, I feel this description is showing me or guiding me through these questions. Instead of the questions of like, what do I want to do with my life? And that turns into a discussion of a career choice. Here it's more like, who do you want to be? Which is also pointing to the idea that I have some level of free will. So if I choose to be convinced with this message, and I choose the prophet as the messenger, then I can still use then I can use him as a model for who I want to be, or at least what a human potential can be. Because I think that's the most guidance that's missing. I don't remember anyone having the capacity to talk about who to be in relation to creation, in relation to meaning, and in relation to God. So I am appreciating how it's such a peculiar, or like a very specific thing he's coming with, but it's extremely rich and very resourceful. Okay. While if you look in this way, that is in regard to his messengership, you see him to be the proof of God, the lamp of truth, the sun of guidance, and the means to happiness. And look, his light has lighted up from east to west like dazzling lightning, and half the earth and a fifth of mankind has accepted the gift of his guidance and preserved it like life itself. So how is it that our evil commanding souls and Satan's do not accept with all its degrees the basis of all such a being claimed? That is, there is no God but God. Any reflections here?
Yes, salam alaikum. So, historically, what do the prophets mean? And even these days, for example, if you look at the message of Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad also, as well, sallallahu in these days, what do we learn from them? I mean, in the civilization, how are we regarding his message? I mean, Moses, yes, mostly in terms of rules and commandments, regulations, Jesus, I don't know what the Christianity kind of proclaims, but mostly a means of salvation, forgiveness of sins, nothing to do with like highlighting what this universe is, what this is about. Now, nothing about how the practical side and what the meaningful side of the universe is. So one aspect in the sixth droplet is his exemplary life, his example, practical life as a worshiper, acknowledging whatever he within himself, however he sees the universe. And of course, the other side is his sharing that the revelation that he received and sharing it, bringing the meaning to the universe, to one's existence, to human beings' life, what is for. So I don't know how, like, all these messengers, I don't think I've read anywhere like this aspect of Prophet Muhammad, including Sallallahu him, these two aspects. I know he taught us how to pray. That's one extent of it. And of course, the practical of taking care of the orphans, giving to charity. And there's not really much more discussion in terms of what his inner belief aspect is and how he brings meaning and purpose to one's living and to life. So it is very important to me to have such a kind of personality individual whom I can really learn from and model after in his practical life, and then learn from his message that he shares. So that's how I saw the sixth droplet.
Thank you. I guess I also really like the idea of the model of love. It's very interesting because it's giving a whole new definition to love. Because here it's giving it value through the message and through reflecting the message and being connected to the message. And I'm just appreciating that, because that's not a common definition of love. It's giving love a completely new aspect. I mean, if I'm seeing Muhammad as a model of love, that's a very strong statement to be said. And then it's coming after the idea that he's a worshipful servant of God. But then it's coming after the idea how he is the discloser and displayers of displayer of the treasures of the divine names. So it's almost like him being the model of love is embedded in the relationship and the connection to the message and the creator. Yeah, and I'm just appreciating that very much. All right. Let's move on to the seventh droplets. Anyone wants to add anything, please go ahead. I feel there is more to see in this droplet, but I can't see it, but I feel it. So if anyone wants to share anything else, please, let's do it. If not, let's move on to the seventh droplet. Now, consider how eradicating in no time at all their evil, savage customs and habits to which they were fanatically attached. He decked out the various wild, unyielding peoples of that broad peninsula with all the finest virtues, and made them teachers of all the world and masters to the civilized nations. See, it was not an outward domination. He conquered and subjugated their minds, spirits, hearts, and souls. He became the beloved of hearts, the teacher of minds, the trainer of souls, and the ruler of spirits. Okay. I highlighted the second part of the paragraph because it's very strong, of course, and it's bringing to my attention a very important distinction. How, again, he's modeling love and exemplifying mercy by his understanding of man, his appreciation of man, and his capacity to teach or to give. Because if he hadn't seen the value or understood man, he wouldn't care to teach minds or train souls. Normally, if we talk about change nowadays, we talk about how hard it is to change anyone. And then usually we blame it on, superficial things, or, mostly superficial things, nothing deep. So here it's kind of saying, well, our minds and hearts and souls are things that can be trained and can be. I want to use the word changed. I'm not sure if it's accurate, but I will use it. It's changed. And I think that's very, again, rich to know. Because nowadays we can think of someone as the result of his environment or his upbringing, or his, I guess his environment mainly. But now it's a different suggestion. No, you're not. You're someone who can be taught, you're someone who can be trained, and someone who can love, basically. And that's, again, new. I feel like if the Prophet did this, then that again is another confirmation to his message, because he's bringing something new. He's not only reflecting divine names, he's bringing almost like a strategy to apply this message to ourselves. Yep. That's it for me. Any other thoughts here? Anything interesting?
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment about what you said a moment ago about how we're a product of our environment. Well, there's also the genetic aspect, nurture versus nature. And that nurture versus nature is pretty much all we hear about in terms of what influences us or what educates us. Nothing is ever said about what this droplet is talking about, that there's another way of becoming nurtured, and that's through the actions of of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. It really changes the, I don't know how to say it. Well, it's definitely a secular view, the nurture versus nature. And that pretty much overrides all other considerations. This is never, ever talked about. So I think it's just really interesting and really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Eighth droplets.
Before we go there,
Oh,
one
please.
comment. For example, if you read the prophetic biography or the seerah of Prophet Muhammad, how is it presented? Like, how did he spread the message? I mean, in the Middle Eastern departments or the Orientalists, they make a case about, going to wars and through the sword of spreading the message. But the reality, which is completely different from how we glorify in the seerah books about the heroic aspect, the general and all that, as the best of the warriors, is pretty much extremely highlighted in many of the seerah works. But we neglect many of the aspects of what his message actually brought and how it changed the entire demographics of that area, like in Mecca, the culture, Medina, all through his teachings and practice, basically foundations in Mecca and then the practical side in Medina. Within a very few years, it is quite, many say it's a miracle, in fact, how the whole society kind of changed in terms of their virtues, how they regarded, and basically establishing their connection of La ilaha illallah, that there is nothing but the Lord of the universe. And you know how hard it is to change someone's habits or whatever is in the society and culture nowadays. And it cannot be done, like, it's not just an outward by force or by sword or whatever, by power or wars, but one has to conquer actually the minds and the spirits and the hearts within the human being itself. And that's how the human real change comes in, because outward everybody can change and show something, but within, if they're not convinced within themselves, then what kind of change or belief would that be? So few thoughts that I had as well on that.
Thank you. Okay, the eighth droplet. You know that a small habit, like cigarette smoking, among a small nation can be removed permanently only by a powerful ruler with great effort. But look, this being removed numerous ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical, large nations with slight outward power and little effort in a short period of time. And in their place, he was so established, exalted qualities that they became as firm as if they had mingled with their very blood. He achieved very many extraordinary feats like this. Thus, we present the Arabian Peninsula as a challenge to those who refuse to see the testimony of the blessed age of the Prophet, Let them each take 100 philosophers, go there and strive for 100 years. Would they be able to carry out in that time 1/100th of what he achieved in a year? I think reading this now, I find this to be interesting. The idea that it says they had mingled with their very blood. Again, if the message is coming from the creator of the universe and from the creator of me, and Muhammad is bringing this message, it would only make sense that the message is not unfamiliar to my creation. It could be difficult for me to understand, or maybe I need time to be convinced by it, but it cannot be, I guess, fitting to my humanity. So again, I like how it's that the messenger is reflecting the message in every single thing he is doing. And I have a question here, and I know everybody can see it, but I don't need to ask it anymore. So please ignore it if you see it. But that's it for me.
So what is your question? Yeah, Radwa, like.
Oh no, I ignore it. I don't want it anymore. It was, shouldn't his followers who follow the same message arrive at the same result? Why is it not happening?
Yeah, what do you think? Anybody knows what's going on in this world right now? Why is it not happening? It's a good question, actually. What is wrong with us, including us? We don't really pay attention to the message that, or we don't really see the need for a prophet in our lives, because we take him as a historical figure and then came with the message, and now we're just running our lives by ourselves, no need of any prophetic message. We may keep some legacy of whatever the major, like the prayers and fasting, but really in our connection with everyday little things that we do when we're eating, when we're walking, running, whatever, sitting down, and having that awareness and that recognition that these things are being presented to me by my Lord, my owner, my caretaker. So seeing that aspect of the messengership, like every time I'm doing something, I should have the consciousness, okay, let's say if the prophet is next to me, how would I be doing the same thing? Am I taking recognition that this is not my property, but it's the ownership, it belongs to my Lord, and I'm just using it and I'm taking care. Again, seeing the divine missive, the message that it is a gift, it is a messenger to me from my Lord, conveying me that how he is taking care of me, nurturing me. And so these are the aspects of how, I mean, it's a continuation of the 7th droplet about how the habits that we are ingrained with, some of them are just cultural habits. They're not really human habits of what a human being has to be. And the simple example of a cigarette smoking is just it's a cultural habit. It's not something to do. That's not a necessity of human being to have that. But we can take many other things that we do from that example on what our habits have become. This being removed numerous ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical large nations, and nothing with any power. Like, for example, how many times the government has to interfere to, even they put signs on the packages of cigarette boxes or the vaping, whatever the vapes that people are getting now, and things are changing, that this can be harmful to you, it can cause cancer, but still there is a market, and it's a very, very huge market, billions of dollars, actually trillions of dollars. Same thing with the alcohol industry and the weapons industry. So a lot of things that are in this universe, I mean, these are not necessary things for human living, for life. And the change within the human being that was achieved with the message is unbelievable and miraculous in that way, that even he challenges anyone to go and see how much effort it requires to change someone versus how the message of the reality of the universe that the prophet brings, how that changes the human being. But we have to look into it. We have to study it. That's the criteria. That's why many of us don't have any time to actually study what the real message is, even including in Christianity, the real message of Jesus is, there's not much there. It's just his life and biography mostly. So that's how I see it. Why we are suffering because we don't see the light that he brings, the good news. We don't take it, we just get worried, oh, this thing happened to me, and we start crying, but we don't see the good news of eternal life, and that being a messenger, whatever the event I'm going through. It's just a temporary thing, it's gonna pass. But it's telling me something, hey, don't, be careful what you're doing in life, adjust your life. You're not for this world, you're for the hereafter.
Thank you. Right, the ninth droplet. Also, you know that an insignificant man of small standing among a small community in a disputed matter of small importance cannot tell a small but shameful lie, brazen-faced and without fear, without displaying anxiety or disquiet enough to inform the enemies at his side of his deception. Now look at that being. Although he undertook a tremendous task, which required an official of great authority and great standing, a situation of great security, can any contradiction at all be found in the words he uttered among a community of great size, in the face of great hostility, concerning a great cause and matters of great significance, with great ease and freedom, without fear, hesitation, diffidence, don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, or anxiety, with pure sincerity, great seriousness, and in an intense, elevated manner that angered his enemies? Is it at all possible that any trickery should have been involved? God forbid. It is not but revelation inspired. The truth does not deceive, and one who perceives the truth is not deceived. His way, which is truth, is free of deception. How could a fancy appear to one who sees the truth and deceive him? Sorry, sees the truth to be the truth and deceive him. For me, I liked when it said the truth does not deceive, and one who perceives the truth is not deceived. Again, I feel like the author is emphasizing the connection between the message and the messenger. So if the message is not deceiving, if the truth is not deceiving, then one who perceives the truth is not deceived. It's so interesting how it's almost like the message is now reflected through the messengership. And if the message is true, if the message is sincere, if the message is not contradicting, not confusing, then it makes sense that the one speaking or the one living with this message will not have any fear or is not hesitant about it. So it's almost like he's taking the message onto himself, applying it to himself, and then applying the message to what he's doing, and therefore the message is being received by others. Yeah. That's it for me. All right. Move on to the 10th droplet. All right. Okay. Now look. What curiosity arousing, attractive, necessary, and awesome truths he shows. What matters he proves. You know that what impels man most is curiosity. Even if it was to be said to you, if you give half of your life and property, someone will come from the moon and Jupiter and tell you all about them. He will also tell you the truth about your future and what will happen to you. You would be bound to give them if you have any curiosity at all. Whereas that being tells of a monarch who is such that in his realm, the moon flies round the moth like a fly, and the moth, the earth, flutters round the lamp, and the lamp, the sun, is merely one lamp among thousands in one guest house out of the thousands of that monarch. I put a question mark here because I feel like he's referring to something. I just don't know what it is. But let's continue reading and see if it makes more sense.
I mean, he's just giving like the figurative example how what the absolute being is, the monarch, as he says, being that tells of a monarch who has all these qualities. So we observe, for example, the moon and the sun, the fly, rotations of the solar systems. So he is the one who owns and regulates, runs, and this is just one example out of, because this is a limited physical example in front of us, but him being the absolute, being the monarch, who's the Lord of the universe, of the absolute being. It's nothing. I mean, these are all just samples and miniature examples, because there's no comparison in what absolute could be versus what a created being is. Like, as everything is dependent and contingent upon that monarch. So it's gives like the vastness and the huge and vastness of his kingdom or his realm.
Thank you. All right. Also, he speaks truly of a world so wondrous and a revolution so momentous that if the earth was a bomb and it exploded, it would not be all that strange. Look, listen to surahs like when the sun is folded up, when the sky is cleft asunder, the day of noise and clamor, which he recites. It's a very interesting imagery, of course. If the earth was a bomb and exploded, it would not be that strange. That's all I have to say. Sorry, I thought it was funny. Also, he speaks about a future in comparison with which the future in this world is like a tiny mirage. And he tells most seriously of a happiness in comparison with which all worldly happiness is but a fleeting flash of lightning in relation to an eternal sun. I find the last sentence very exciting because previously discussions about the prophet or the message is related to a lot of struggle and discipline, and that, you know, maybe one day we make it to paradise and then we'll live happily ever after. But here it's more like the message is slowly coming, it's changing how I see the world around me. It's changing who I can be. It's changing what I can do with myself. And it's changing the idea that eternal happiness is true. It's not a fairy tale. It's not something intangible. It's not just a wishful thinking thing. No, it's also part of the message. Obviously, it's very fascinating how a message can do all of this and entail all of this. And it's very fascinating that a messenger, a human being, person, can reflect all of this and bring good news and remind us of eternal happiness. It's almost like it's saying, yes, you are looking for eternal happiness because you're created this way, and here is how you get to it, which is, of course, very liberating to learn. That's it for me. Any thoughts here? Okay. All right. We only have 5 minutes. Should I move on with the 11th droplet or stop here?
Yeah, I think you can go over one.
One more? Okay. All right. 11th droplet. For sure, wonders await us under the apparent veil of the universe, which is thus strange and perplexing. So one thus wonderful and extraordinary, a displayer of marvels, is necessary to tell of its wonders. Again, necessary to tell of its wonders. It is apparent from that being's conduct that he has seen them and sees them and says that he has seen them. Wow, and that's a very fascinating capacity to man, again, to be able to see beyond the obvious, and to be able to communicate it as well in a way that we can receive it. And he instructs us most soundly concerning what the God of the heavens and the earth, who nurtures us with his bounties, wants and desires of us. Everyone should therefore leave everything and run to and heed this being, who teaches numerous other necessary, curiosity-arousing truths like these. So how is it that most people are deaf and blind, and mad even, so that they do not see this truth, and they do not listen to it and understand it? Well, I think, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for me if there is some resistance, just because the message is bringing on a significant change. And I think if I'm a person who's not open to change, who's not curious, who's not looking for something meaningful, and who's not looking for almost like an answer to my existential questions, but also a solution to my existential problems, then this message is scary. So I think the message is, for me to receive the message, it depends on how much I'm open to my own self, and hearing its questions or seeing its needs or feeling its anxiety of existence. And that, I think, can be a little scary, yes, but it's also comforting because we have the message. Any comments here?
I just want to say it is actually very scary. As someone who's come late to Islam, as someone who's come to Islam late in life, it seems inconceivable. And because it seems inconceivable, you just dismiss it almost outright. So it was from my friends who believed in the message that sort of said, you should think about this. But also, I think you have to be ready. You have to be sort of fed up with, this doesn't make me happy, this doesn't make me happy, so what does make me happy, and what am I doing here anyway? You kind of have to reach that point before you can be open. And maybe people aren't at that point. Maybe they just look for everything they need to be satisfied in the secular life. Or they just go to church every Sunday and, sing gospels and feel like that's good enough. So I think it's a combination of being needing the message and and ask. Thank you.
Sorry, your voice broke a little. You said it's combination of needing the message
Oh.
and
Oh, I'm sorry because I'm driving. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
It's a combination of you need the message and you need a friend you trust, a Muslim friend you trust, to sort of say, hey, think about this. Can you hear me say that part?
Yes, got
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the reflection as well. And I understand how scary it can be. But inshallah, we're going to be together. And we can take it one step at a time. Easy steps.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. We can stop here. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.